Shalom, my friends. Right now, at this very moment, you might be staring at your bank account wondering why that business opportunity didn't work out, why that investment fell through, or why the breakthrough you've been praying for still hasn't arrived. You're watching others succeed while you feel stuck in a holding pattern, and the frustration is eating you alive. Every delay feels like a punishment. Every closed door feels like rejection, and you're starting to believe that maybe financial abundance just isn't meant for you. But what if I told you that everything you've been calling a delay is actually divine intervention protecting you from disaster? The Torah contains an ancient code about timing that most people completely misunderstand. While modern society screams at us to move faster, hustle harder, and seize every opportunity immediately, the Torah teaches something radically different. That divine timing operates on a frequency most people can't perceive, and what looks like a frustrating delay to human eyes is often God's hand physically preventing you from walking into financial ruin. This isn't about positive thinking or manifestation. This is about understanding a mathematical precision built into the fabric of creation itself, where every delay, every waiting period, every moment of forced patience is actually calibrating your life for a blessing so large that receiving it one day earlier would have destroyed you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact Torah principles that explain why your biggest financial frustrations might be your greatest protections, how to recognize when a delay is actually divine redirection, and the specific signs that indicate you're being positioned for a breakthrough that required this exact season of waiting. By the end of this video, you'll never look at delays the same way again, and you'll discover why the wealthiest people throughout Jewish history understood something about timing that gave them an almost unfair advantage in building and protecting generational wealth. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could be the missing piece that transforms your entire financial future. We live in a culture that has weaponized urgency against us. Every advertisement screams limited time offer, every opportunity comes with an artificial deadline, and every financial decision is presented as if waiting even one more day will cost us everything. This manufactured panic has created an entire generation of people who make fear-based financial decisions, rushing into investments they don't understand, signing contracts they haven't read, and committing resources to opportunities that haven't been properly evaluated, all because someone convinced them that hesitation equals loss. The Torah reveals this for what it truly is, a manipulation tactic that works against divine timing and leads people directly into financial bondage. When you operate from urgency, you're operating from fear, and fear is the opposite frequency of blessing. The Hebrew concept of bitah and achishena, in its time or hastened, appears throughout Torah in relation to redemption and blessing. The Talmud teaches that blessings can come in one of two ways: in the appointed time, bitah, when all conditions are perfectly aligned, or hastened, achishena, if we prove worthy through our actions. But here's what most people miss. The hastened blessing is actually smaller than the appointed time blessing. When you rush the process, you might get something faster, but you sacrifice the magnitude of what was being prepared for you. This is why so many people experience small wins that feel empty, quick money that doesn't last, or opportunities that arrive with complications. They force the timing instead of trusting the process, and they receive the reduced version of what patience would have delivered in fullness. Think about every major financial mistake you've ever made. I'll bet that if you're honest, most of them happened when you felt pressured to decide quickly. That real estate deal that went bad, you rushed because the seller said someone else was interested. That business partnership that ended in disaster, you committed before properly vetting because you didn't want to miss out. That investment that tanked, you jumped in during the hype instead of waiting for clarity. The Torah teaches that legitimate opportunities from God don't require you to violate your need for wisdom, prayer, and discernment. If someone is pressuring you to make a financial decision faster than you can seek counsel, investigate thoroughly, and pray for clarity. That pressure itself is your warning sign that this opportunity isn't from the source of all blessing. It's from the source of all lack, trying to disguise itself as abundance. The Torah operates on a completely different time system than the world teaches. In Genesis, we learn that God created time itself, and there was evening and there was morning one day, establishing that time isn't just a measurement we track, but an actual created entity that has properties, purposes, and divine intelligence built into it. The Hebrew word for time is zaman, but the deeper concept the Torah uses is et, the appointed time, the right season, the moment when heaven and earth align for a specific purpose. Ecclesiastes 3 doesn't just say there's a time for everything as poetic wisdom. It's revealing a scientific principle that every action, every blessing, every breakthrough has a specific temporal coordinate when it can successfully manifest in the physical realm, and attempting to force it outside that window leads to malformation. This concept appears repeatedly in the agricultural laws given in Torah, which aren't just about farming, they're financial blueprints. The law of Shemitah, the sabbatical year, requires fields to rest every 7 years, a practice that seems financially insane from a human perspective. You're telling me to intentionally skip an entire year of income. But farmers who followed this Torah principle discovered something remarkable. The land produced more abundantly in the 6th year, enough to last through the 7th, and when they resumed farming in the 8th year, the land was so replenished that their yields multiplied. The delay, the forced waiting, the season of apparent inactivity wasn't punishment or loss. It was recalibration, restoration, and preparation for greater capacity. This same principle applies to your finances. Sometimes the reason you're in a season where nothing seems to be moving is because you're being upgraded to handle a level of blessing that your current capacity would waste. The story of Joseph illustrates divine timing with surgical precision. Joseph had dreams of greatness at 17, but he didn't step into leadership until he was 30, 13 years of delays that included being sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison. Every single year of that delay felt like God had abandoned him, like his destiny had been stolen. But here's what Torah reveals. If Joseph had been elevated to Pharaoh's right hand at 17, 20, or even 25, he wouldn't have had the character development, the Egyptian language fluency, the understanding of palace politics, the spiritual maturity, or the emotional stability to navigate the responsibility. The delay wasn't denying his destiny, it was developing it. Every year in Potiphar's house taught him Egyptian business practices. Every day in prison connected him with the butler who would remember him to Pharaoh. Every moment of waiting was building the exact skill set, network, and wisdom he needed to save nations from famine and position his family for generational wealth. Your delay is your development. Jewish history is filled with documented cases where forced delays saved people from financial catastrophe. During the great stock market crash of 1929, there's a famous account of a Jewish businessman in New York who had planned to invest his entire fortune into the market on a Monday morning. That Sunday night, his young son became suddenly ill with a high fever, requiring him to stay home and care for the child instead of making it to his broker's office Monday morning, the day the market crashed. By Tuesday, when his son's fever broke and he could return to business, he witnessed dozens of his colleagues financially ruined by the very investment he would have made 48 hours earlier. He later wrote in his diary that he had been angry at God for the terrible timing of his son's illness, not realizing until after that this delay had protected his family's entire wealth. The Torah principle here is that divine protection often looks like frustrating obstacles. The Talmud records the story of Rabbi Akiva, who missed a sailing ship because his donkey made an unexpected stop and refused to move. Frustrated, Rabbi Akiva watched the ship leave without him, losing his paid passage and facing a significant financial setback. The next morning, news arrived that the ship had been attacked by pirates and everyone aboard was killed. The stubborn donkey had literally saved his life. This story is taught not as a miracle tale, but as a practical principle. What you interpret as bad luck, poor timing, or frustrating delays may actually be divine intervention steering you away from disaster. How many missed opportunities in your life were actually bullets dodged? How many doors that closed in your face were protecting you from rooms full of destruction you couldn't see? In modern times, there's the well-documented case of Warren Buffett refusing to invest in tech stocks during the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. He was mocked mercilessly by the financial media and other investors who were making millions. His net worth fell billions behind his competitors who had jumped into the trend. It looked like he was missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime, like his hesitation was costing him everything. But Buffett followed a principle remarkably similar to Torah wisdom about timing. Only invest in what you understand, and never let pressure force you to violate that principle. When the bubble burst in 2000 to 2001, those who had rushed in lost everything, while Buffett's delay in participating preserved his wealth and positioned him to buy valuable assets at pennies on the dollar. His forced patience during the boom years, which looked like a costly mistake to everyone watching, turned out to be the exact strategy that multiplied his wealth exponentially. The delay wasn't the loss. The delay was the strategy. The Torah presents patience not as a passive virtue for nice people, but as an active wealth-building strategy. In Proverbs 21:5 it states, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." This isn't moral advice, it's financial mathematics. The Hebrew word translated as hasty is ratz, which literally means to run rashly or to be urgent in a way that skips steps. Torah is revealing that wealth building has a required sequence, and attempting to skip steps in that sequence doesn't get you to wealth faster. It actually prevents you from arriving at all. It's like trying to get to the 10th floor by jumping instead of taking the stairs or elevator. The jumping feels faster and more urgent, but it doesn't get you there. The patient, systematic approach does. This principle manifests in the Torah's laws about lending and interest. The prohibition against charging interest to your fellow Israelite, neshek in Hebrew, which literally means bite, isn't about being nice. It's about understanding that sustainable wealth is built through patience-based relationships rather than urgency-based extraction. When you charge interest, you're profiting from someone's urgency, their need to have money now rather than later. But Torah teaches that this creates unsustainable economic systems where wealth appears to grow quickly but ultimately collapses because it's built on pressure rather than production. The interest-free lending model forces both parties to operate with patience. The lender must wait for repayment, and the borrower isn't crushed under compounding pressure. This patience creates actual prosperity rather than the illusion of it, because it allows businesses to develop properly, investments to mature naturally, and wealth to be built on solid foundation rather than leveraged urgency. Consider the biblical principle of gleaning taught in Leviticus 19. Farmers were commanded to leave the corners of their fields unharvested and not to go back for forgotten sheaves. These were to be left for the poor. On the surface, this looks like it costs the farmer money. They're intentionally leaving profit in the field. But what Torah is teaching is a patience principle about wealth. When you build margin into your financial life, when you don't extract every possible dollar immediately, when you leave space for error and grace, you actually create more sustainable abundance than the aggressive harvester who strips everything in urgency. The farmer who leaves corners is building relationships with his community, creating goodwill, establishing a reputation that leads to better business. And most importantly, he's practicing the patience that allows his land and his life to remain fertile long term. The farmer who harvests everything in urgency might get more sacks of grain this season, but he'll burn out his land, his relationships, and his own soul. Torah knew that patience isn't the slow path to wealth. Urgency is the fast path to poverty. The Torah gives us specific indicators that reveal when a delay is divine protection rather than demonic distraction. First, when you feel an internal unrest that you can't explain, even when an opportunity looks perfect on paper, that disquiet is your neshama, soul, perceiving something your logical mind cannot yet see. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah heard the still, small voice of God, not in the earthquake, wind, or fire, but in the silence. When you have that unexplainable hesitation before a financial decision, that's not fear or lack of faith. That's divine intelligence warning you that this isn't your appointed time for this particular move. The Talmud teaches Izehu Chacham, Haroeh et Hanolad. Who is wise? One who can see what is being born, meaning one who can perceive future consequences now. That inner check is your soul seeing future outcomes your eyes cannot yet perceive. Second, when obstacles keep appearing despite your best efforts, Torah teaches this as a potential sign to pause and reassess. The story of Balaam in Numbers 22 is instructive. He was hired to curse Israel, and as he traveled to do so, his donkey kept stopping and refusing to move forward. Balaam was angry, interpreting this as the donkey being stubborn, when in reality, the donkey could see the angel with a drawn sword blocking the path, destruction that Balaam couldn't perceive. Many of us respond to obstacles exactly like Balaam. We get angry, we push harder, we interpret resistance as something to overcome through force. But Torah is teaching that sometimes the obstacle is an angel, sometimes the closed door is protection, and sometimes what feels like opposition is actually divine course correction. When you find yourself forcing, straining, manipulating, and exhausting yourself to make something happen, that's your sign that you might be fighting against your own protection. Third, when counsel from wise people consistently advises waiting, even when it frustrates you, this is God speaking through the principle of Arov, majority wisdom. Proverbs 15:22 states, "Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisers, they succeed." The Hebrew word for advisors is yoatzim, which comes from the root meaning to deliberate, or to think deeply together. When multiple wise people in your life, especially those with no stake in your decision, are cautioning you to wait, to pray more, to investigate further, this isn't them being fearful or holding you back. This is divine wisdom distributed through human voices, creating a chorus of protection around you. The Torah principle is that God rarely gives life-changing direction to only one isolated voice. He confirms through multiple witnesses. If every wise voice in your life is saying not yet, while only the voice of urgency is saying now, you're being protected from a mistake your excitement is blinding you to. The Torah provides a practical framework for discerning when the time has actually arrived versus when you're still in a protective delay. First, there's the principle of shalom, divine peace. Colossians 3:15 speaks of letting the peace of God act as an umpire in your heart, and this reflects an ancient Torah principle that authentic divine timing carries a supernatural peace that transcends circumstances. When it's truly your moment to move, you'll experience a settledness in your spirit even if the decision seems risky to others. This isn't the artificial peace of denial or the hyped excitement of emotional manipulation. It's a deep knowing that defies circumstances, the kind of peace Joseph had when interpreting Pharaoh's dream, the peace David had when facing Goliath, the peace Esther had when approaching the king. If you're experiencing anxiety, pressure, or a need to convince yourself, you're probably not in your God-appointed time yet. Second, Torah teaches the principle of witnesses, confirmation through multiple independent sources. Deuteronomy 19:15 establishes that no matter can be confirmed by a single witness. It requires 2 or 3. Applied to financial timing, this means that when it's truly your moment to move, you'll see confirmation through multiple unconnected channels. A scripture that speaks directly to your situation, wise counsel from people who don't know each other giving similar advice, circumstances aligning in ways you didn't manipulate, supernatural provision appearing, doors opening that you didn't force. When you're trying to make something happen in the wrong timing, you'll find yourself becoming the only witness, the only one who sees the vision, the only voice saying, "This is it." But when divine timing has arrived, the universe begins to conspire in your favor through multiple confirmations that you didn't manufacture. Third, there's the principle of preparation meeting opportunity. The Talmud teaches im ein kemach ein Torah. Without bread, there is no Torah, meaning that practical preparation must precede spiritual elevation. When the right time has arrived, you'll notice that your preparation level matches the opportunity size. You'll have the skills, resources, knowledge, relationships, and character development that the opportunity requires. This is why delays exist. They're development periods. If an opportunity requires $50,000 and you only have $5,000, the delay isn't punishment. It's your development season to build the additional $45,000. If an opportunity requires leadership skills you haven't developed yet, the delay is your character building season. When divine timing arrives, you'll notice that who you've become during the waiting perfectly matches what the opportunity demands. You won't feel unqualified, unprepared, or overwhelmed. You'll feel like the entire season of waiting was designed to make you the exact person who can succeed in this exact moment. That alignment is your green light. My friends, I want you to sit with this truth. Every delay you're experiencing right now is doing one of two things. It's either protecting you from disaster you cannot see, or it's developing you for a blessing you cannot yet handle. The Torah doesn't teach a God who arbitrarily blocks his children from blessing. It teaches a God who loves us enough to protect us from receiving things at the wrong time, which would destroy us, and who loves us enough to develop us during waiting seasons so that when blessings arrive, we have the capacity to steward them. The financial breakthrough you're praying for isn't being denied. It's being timed with precision that takes into account variables your limited human perspective cannot calculate. What if the business you're desperate to start right now would fail in this economy, but in 18 months, conditions will perfectly align for it to explode? What if the investment you're frustrated you can't make today is going to drop 40% in value next quarter, and your current lack is protecting your capital for a better entry point you can't yet see? Think about where you were 5 years ago and the things you were desperate for that didn't happen. How many of those unanswered prayers can you now see with hindsight were actually divine protection? How many disappointments became setups for better opportunities? How many closed doors kept you from paths that would have led to disaster? The same God who was protecting you then is protecting you now. The difference is that when you're in the middle of a delay, you can't see the future yet, but Torah gives you a framework to trust the process even in the middle of uncertainty. Stop interpreting every delay as rejection, every waiting period as punishment, every season of stillness as abandonment. Start recognizing these moments for what they truly are: divine intervention, positioning you for success, protecting your resources, and developing your character to match the size of the blessing that has your name on it. I want to leave you with this assignment. Write down every major disappointment, every missed opportunity, every frustrating delay from the last 5 years. Now, beside each one, write what you learned during that waiting period, who you became, what skills you developed, what disasters you later discovered you avoided. You're going to see a pattern that will shift your entire perspective on your current delays, and then I want you to take that perspective and apply it to what you're experiencing right now. Stop fighting the waiting season and start mining it for the treasure it contains. Your next level of wealth isn't coming from making things happen faster. It's coming from trusting divine timing enough to wait for the appointed moment when heaven and earth align for your breakthrough. That's not passive, that's strategic, that's not weak, that's wise. That's not religious. That's Torah financial intelligence that has created and protected generational wealth for thousands of years. Shalom, and may you recognize the blessings hidden in your delays. If this message resonated with you and you're ready to understand more Torah principles for financial breakthrough, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today, someone who's frustrated with their financial timing and needs to understand divine protection. And in the comments below, I want you to share one delay you experienced that you can now see was actually divine protection. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to keep trusting the process. I'll see you in the next video where we're diving into the Torah's blueprint for supernatural provision. Shalom.